My name is Harper. I'm 26. And at my last performance review, my manager told me he couldn't promote me because people think you're sleeping with me. Everyone else went back to their desks like nothing happened. I walked out of that glass room feeling like my badge had been stamped with a word I never agreed to wear. HR called it a perception issue. Cole said he was just being honest. No one asked what actually happened in that Chicago hotel or who started the rumor. They just decided the story for me. What they didn't know was that I hadn't even started fighting back yet. Before I go any further, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever dealt with a toxic boss, a jealous coworker, or been blamed for something you didn't do at work, hit like and subscribe. You'd be surprised how many people in the comments have lived through the same kind of office politics. This story isn't just mine. It's every worker who's ever been punished for a lie. I didn't grow up around glass offices or quarterly business reviews. My parents worked honest, exhausting jobs. My mom at a dental clinic, my dad driving deliveries for a regional warehouse. When I got my first internship at a marketing firm, they acted like I'd won a scholarship to NASA. I still remember my dad saying, "Just keep your head down and don't let anyone push you around." I didn't know how impossible that would turn out to be. My first full-time job after college was at a company where everything looked polished from the outside. Modern lobby, free snacks, inspirational quotes printed on the walls. But it took only a few months for the cracks to show. A senior manager started messaging a woman on my team at midnight, sending check-in texts that clearly weren't about work. When she reported it, HR promised confidentiality. 2 weeks later, she was suddenly labeled difficult to work with, removed from projects, and eventually pushed out. Everyone acted like nothing happened. My boyfriend at the time, Miles, told me, "It's complicated. You should stay out of it." I didn't stay out of it. I backed her. I spoke up. And suddenly I was unprofessional, too emotional, not a team fit. It didn't take long before I packed my things into a cardboard box and walked out. That was the day I told myself I would never, ever get entangled with power again, romantically or politically. When I joined Apex Insight, my current company, I wanted a clean slate. I promised myself I'd be neutral, invisible, focused. On day one, I walked into the open plan office with my badge still warm from the printer. Cold, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. People looked busy, stressed, and caffeinated. Perfect. My favorite kind of anonymity. Then I met Cole Bennett. He didn't smile much during the onboarding meeting. He shook my hand with a quick, firm grip and introduced himself in this calm, quiet voice that made the whole room fade for a second. "Harper, right? Welcome to the team." No warmth, no coldness, just professionalism. The kind of manager who never crosses a line. Exactly what I needed. In the first few weeks, I barely spoke to him outside of team stand-ups. He was sharp, efficient, and always 3 steps ahead in every client meeting. Meanwhile, I was the new junior, trying not to trip over the coffee machine. Still, he noticed things no one else did. The extra hours I spent checking data quality, the way I could explain complex metrics clearly to clients, and the clean structure of my reports. He didn't praise me often, but when he did, it stuck with me far longer than it should have. A month in, we had our first late night working together. Most people were already gone, chairs pushed in, screens locked, desks dark except for 1 or 2 laptops still glowing. I was fixing a deck for a client meeting the next morning when I heard him say behind me, "You structured this differently." I spun around, startled. Cole stood there with his jacket off, sleeves rolled up, tie loosened just enough to be human. He took the mouse gently from my hand, not touching me, but close enough that I felt the heat of him. "This part," he said, highlighting a section. "You tied the narrative together better than I did earlier. Cleaner, smarter." Nobody had ever complimented me like that in a professional setting, not on something that mattered. I swallowed. "Thank you. I'm just trying not to screw up." He glanced at me, eyes softer than usual. "You're not screwing up." A simple sentence, Just that, but it burned into my brain like a brand. From then on, things slowly shifted. Not dramatically, just enough for the air to thicken whenever we were in the same room. If someone spoke while I was presenting, he'd shut it down. If I struggled with a data set, he'd quietly walk over and help. And then there were the looks. Not inappropriate, not lingering, just too aware. I tried to ignore it. God knows I did. But then came the Chicago project. Apex Insight rarely sends juniors on business trips. It was usually senior analysts or project leads. So when Cole announced I'd be going with the team, the room froze for a half second. I heard a chair creak. Someone exhaled sharply. Bianca raised her eyebrows in this, "Oh, really?" kind of way, but said nothing. "What about Marcus?" someone asked. Cole didn't blink. "Harper built the prototype. She understands the data flow better than anyone else." I felt my pulse in my ears. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know if I wanted it. But when Cole looked at me, just a brief glance across the table, I felt that same strange pull I'd been trying to smother. The trip started normally enough. A crowded O'Hare terminal, a taxi ride to the downtown hotel, back-to-back meetings, long hours spent rehearsing presentations in conference rooms that smelled like burnt coffee and recycled air. Every time Cole stood beside me during a client pitch, I felt this tightness in my chest, half pride, half panic. The night everything changed was our second night there. The team decided to go down to the hotel bar after a long day, to unwind, which in office language means gossiping loudly over cheap cocktails. I planned to go with them until Cole approached me in the hallway, hands in his pockets, eyes unreadable. "Harper, can you stay back for a bit? We should go over your section one more time." My stomach flipped. Not because I thought anything would happen, I knew he wouldn't cross a line, but because I didn't trust myself not to feel something I wasn't allowed to feel. Still, I nodded. The room was quiet, dimly lit by the city bleeding through the window. We stood shoulder to shoulder, scrolling through slides, debating phrasing, tightening transitions. At some point, I realized my heart was beating too fast, that I was hyper-aware of him, of the warmth between us, of the way he inhaled slowly whenever he was thinking. Then he stopped talking. I turned to ask what was wrong and saw that he was looking at me, not at the screen, not past me, but directly at me. "Harper," he said softly, almost like the word hurt. "I don't want to cross a line, but I think about you more than I should." My breath caught. That was the moment everything cracked. I wish I could say I handled that moment gracefully. I didn't. My throat tightened, my palms went cold, and all I could manage was a whisper, "Cole, we can't." He nodded, but it wasn't the confident, controlled nod he gave in meetings. It was small, almost ashamed. "I know," he said. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything." But the damage was already done. Not because he crossed a boundary. He didn't touch me, didn't step closer, didn't even try to justify himself. The damage was internal. Something inside me, something I'd tried to keep locked away since my last job, shifted. A part of me that had been numb for years flickered awake. I forced myself to look back at the laptop. Let's just finish the deck. We worked in silence for another 20 minutes. I tried to focus on the numbers, the charts, the flow of the narrative, but every breath he took felt too loud in the small room. When we finally wrapped up, he thanked me and left first, giving me space. He didn't try to linger or fix anything, and somehow, that made everything worse. I barely slept. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the city noise drifting in through the window. His voice kept replaying in my head. Not the words, just the way he said my name, soft but weighted, like he'd been holding it in for a long time. In the morning, I dragged myself to breakfast later than usual. I was hoping to slip in unnoticed, but the moment I walked in, I felt every head at the table turn. It wasn't obvious, they didn't stop eating or talking, but there was this sliver of silence that sliced the air. Bianca smirked. "Well, good morning. Rough night together?" The entire table erupted into a mix of laughter, fake surprise, and narrowed eyes. My fork clattered onto my plate. I opened my mouth to shut it down, but my voice wouldn't come out. I wasn't embarrassed, I was angry. Angry at myself for letting it show. Before I could recover, Cole walked in. He didn't look at me, not even a glance. He sat at the far end of the table and started talking to Marcus about the day's agenda. That should have helped, but it made things worse, because suddenly it looked like we were avoiding each other. And avoidance, especially in a hotel full of coworkers, always looks suspicious. Someone snapped a photo of us both standing in line for coffee. I heard the shudder. I saw the way two analysts leaned together whispering. One of them typed something on Slack, snickering. By lunch, the caption was already circulating. New power couple? I felt the blood drain from my face when I saw it. Noah, bless him, tried to snatch the phone out of someone's hand and delete the message, but it was too late. Someone had screenshotted it. Someone always screenshots it. The worst part? I could see the panic in Cole's eyes. He didn't show it, his face was its usual mask of calm, but I could read him better than most. He knew exactly where this could go. Rumors at Apex don't fade, they metastasize. That night, after the last client session, I tried to catch him in the hallway. "Cole, we should talk about—" He cut me off, voice low but firm. "Not here." There were people around, peeking, listening, pretending not to. I stepped back, humiliated, not because he rejected me, he didn't, but because suddenly it felt like I was a liability he needed to control. When we flew back to the office the next day, the rumor arrived before we did. Within an hour of returning, HR sent both of us calendar invites labeled, "Confidential, quick check-in." My stomach dropped. I hadn't even taken off my coat. Walking through the office felt like walking through fog. Every conversation stopped too quickly when I passed by. Every laugh felt sharper. I could hear pieces of sentences. Chicago. At night. Saw them. Followed by a fake cough or a forced keyboard clatter. It was the same pattern I'd seen at my old job, the same pattern that ended with a woman losing her livelihood while the man got promoted 6 months later. I felt history folding over itself, repeating. I wanted to talk to Cole, but he stayed at his desk, eyes glued to his monitor. His jaw tightened each time a Slack notification popped up. He looked like a man trying desperately not to break anything. When HR finally called me in, I sat across from Jenna, the HR business partner, in a room too bright and too cold. She had one of those polite smiles that said nothing and everything at once. "So, Harper," she began, crossing her legs, "we received an anonymous report about a potential boundary issue during the Chicago trip." I felt my lungs collapse. No boundary was crossed. Her brows lifted, not in surprise but in challenge. Of course, but perception matters here. There it was again, that cursed word, perception, the thing you can't control, the thing that can kill your career even if you've done everything right. "Someone claims they saw you entering your manager's room late at night," she continued. My voice came out harsher than intended. "That's not true." I wanted to scream that I had keycard logs, that my room was on a different floor, that the only time we were alone was for work. But I also knew HR didn't care about proof. They cared about liability. Jenna closed her tablet. "We'll also be speaking with Cole. For now, keep everything strictly professional. No closed-door one-on-ones, no late Slack exchanges, and maybe avoid being seen alone together." I left her office shaking, not from guilt, but from rage. Rage that one whispered joke at breakfast could snowball into an investigation. Rage that I was living inside a story I didn't write. When I walked past the open space, Marcus watched me from his desk with a small, satisfied smile. And that's when the truth hit me. Someone didn't just want me embarrassed, someone wanted me gone. If Chicago was the spark, the office was the gasoline. The morning after my HR meeting, I walked into the open space and felt every pair of eyes flick toward me, then away, like they were afraid of being caught staring. The air felt thicker, heavier, like I'd stepped into a room where someone forgot to open a window. I tried to settle into my seat, pretending everything was normal, but the notifications started immediately. Slack pings, group DMs closed when I hovered over them, someone accidentally sending a message to the wrong channel. Did you see how she blushed when Cole walked in? The message was deleted 30 seconds later, but 30 seconds is an eternity in an office rumor mill. Noah rolled his chair toward me, lowering his voice. "Harper, there's a lot going around. Do you want me to shut anything down?" I shook my head. "No, that'll make it worse." He hesitated, eyes soft with concern. "Just tell me it's not true." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Not because it was true, but because I didn't even know what it was anymore. Had I felt something? Yes. Has anything happened? No. But perception didn't care about accuracy. I forced a smile. "Focus on work, Noah, please." But work wasn't interested in focusing on me. An hour later, during a project sync, Marcus interrupted halfway through my update. "Actually," he said loudly, "maybe someone who isn't emotionally involved with management should present this part." The room went silent. Bianca's jaw dropped. Noah muttered, "Dude, what?" under his breath. I felt the burn crawl up my neck. "Marcus, what is that supposed to mean?" He leaned back in his chair, fingers laced behind his head, pretending innocence. "Relax. I'm just saying we should avoid conflicts of interest. Perception matters, right?" My chair scraped back louder than I intended. "There is no conflict of interest." He shrugged with exaggerated disbelief. "If you say so." Cole sat at the head of the table, silent, jaw tightening. For a second, I thought he'd defend me, but then his gaze dropped to the table. "Let's stay on task," he said, voice clipped. "Marcus, continue." My chest tightened. He didn't defend me. He didn't even look at me. And for the first time, I wondered if Miles had been right years ago, if, in moments like this, men chose their reputation over the truth. The meeting dragged on, each minute heavier than the last. When it finally ended, I grabbed my laptop and escaped to the hallway, breathing like I'd just surfaced from underwater. I didn't expect Cole to follow me, but he did, closing the door gently behind him. "Harper," he said, "don't take what Marcus said personally." I stared at him. "He basically accused me of sleeping with you." His jaw worked, like he was grinding down a response he didn't want to say aloud. "I know, I can't escalate things with him right now. It'll make everything worse." "So I'm supposed to sit there and let him humiliate me?" He didn't answer. That silence cut sharper than any rumor. When I returned to my desk, someone had left a box of chocolates on it. Fancy, expensive, wrapped with gold foil. Noah popped his head up over his monitor. "Who's that from?" he asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "There's no note." I tossed it into my drawer without opening it. Wrong move. 10 minutes later, I overheard Bianca whispering near the pantry. Of course he bought her chocolates. Classic guilty man behavior. I pressed my forehead into my hands. It wasn't from Cole. If anything, he could barely look at me. But logic didn't matter. The office was building its own story, and I was just a character in it. At lunch, no one invited me. The usual Slack message, food, never came. Even the intern, Josh, gave me an apologetic look as he followed the group out. I ate alone at my desk, pretending the silence didn't hurt, pretending the heat behind my eyes was from staring at the screen too long. Around 3 p.m., the sabotage began. I opened the shared drive to find one of my reports updated with incorrect numbers that made no sense and made me look incompetent. The report was due to the client the next morning. My heart slammed against my ribs. "Who touched this?" I whispered. The file history showed Marcus had edited it 2 hours earlier. I stormed to Cole's desk. "Marcus changed my report. He made it wrong." Cole looked up, startled. "Calm down. What happened?" I showed him the screen. He frowned, scrolling through the document. "These numbers, They're completely off. Yes, and they were correct this morning. He ran a hand through his hair, thinking, okay, we'll fix it. Let me talk to him. No, I said sharply. I'll talk to him. Cole stood quickly. Harper, don't. You're too emotional right now. Too emotional. The phrase hit me like a slap. I stepped back. Right. Wouldn't want me to feed into the stereotype, right? He sighed, lowering his voice. That's not what I meant. But it didn't matter. I'd already walked away. I confronted Marcus near the printers. You changed my report. He didn't even flinch. It needed adjustments. Those adjustments made the entire analysis wrong. He smiled, a slow, deliberate smirk. Hey, we all make mistakes, but when you get special treatment, people expect perfection. Special treatment? I repeated. I earned that project. He leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. Did you? My stomach twisted. This wasn't about rumors anymore. This was a strategy, a slow, methodical dismantling of my credibility. And the worst part? It was working. After the confrontation at the printers, something in me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, more like a quiet click inside my chest, the sound of a lock breaking. I didn't report Marcus that day. I didn't storm into HR or make a scene. I did what every smart employee in a toxic office learns to do. I documented everything. Every file change, every Slack message, every offhand comment disguised as a joke. I opened a private folder in my personal drive and titled it with one word: insurance. Because that's what the truth becomes in places like Apex, a kind of currency. Still, documentation couldn't protect me from what came next. The following week, during our Tuesday stand-up, Cole announced the reassignments for Q4. My name was listed under 3 new, high-visibility projects, ones that previously belonged to senior analysts. I didn't want them. I didn't ask for them. And right now, they were the worst thing that could have happened to me. The room buzzed like someone had plugged an electric wire into the wall. Marcus's eyes narrowed with something almost triumphant. Bianca muttered, "Of course," under her breath. Noah shot me a panicked look like, "Please tell me you didn't ask for these." I felt heat crawl up my neck. People already thought Cole favored me. And this? This was gasoline on a wildfire. When the meeting ended, I approached Cole. "I can't take those projects." He blinked. "Why not?" "You know why not," I hissed. "Everyone already thinks you're giving me special treatment." His jaw tightened. "These assignments are based on skill, and you're the most capable person for them." "That doesn't matter if nobody believes it." His voice dropped. "Harper, I'm trying to protect your career." "By painting a target on my back?" I whispered, feeling my chest tighten. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. He looked torn, conflicted, like he was stuck between what he wanted and what he knew he should do. But then he let out a slow breath and said the words that shattered me more than he realized. "Maybe you should lay low. Avoid unnecessary attention. It'll die down eventually." Lay low. Hide. Disappeared so his reputation stayed intact. It was Miles all over again. I stepped back. "So the solution is for me to be smaller?" He flinched. "That's not— Harper, please." But I was already walking away. By afternoon, the sabotage escalated. I received an email from a client, confused, irritated, because I had supposedly sent them a set of incorrect projections. I hadn't. The email had been sent under my name, from my address, but the phrasing wasn't mine. It was too casual, too sloppy. Someone had accessed my unlocked computer at my desk while I was in a meeting. I froze. My heart hammered. My stomach turned upside down. Someone wanted me fired. I went straight to Cole, hands shaking. "Someone used my computer." He frowned. "To send what?" I showed him the email. His expression darkened. "This is serious." Before I could respond, Marcus walked by, sipping coffee, smirking at me like he already knew exactly what was happening. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw away my laptop. I wanted someone, anyone, to stand up for me. But all Cole said was, "We'll figure this out." Not, "I've got you. This isn't your fault." Just that vague, corporate nothingness that people use when they're afraid to take a side. That night, I stayed late to redo the projections myself. The office was nearly empty, just the soft hum of the AC and the occasional ding from the elevator. Around 8 p.m., I went to the pantry to refill my water. That's when I heard voices. "She's cracking," someone whispered. "Good. If she quits, the whole mess goes away." My blood ran cold. I recognized the tone, that smug confidence. Marcus. I pressed myself against the wall, listening. "If we push this hard enough," he said, "she'll make a mistake. HR will take her down clean, and maybe they'll rethink who should really be managing this team." My stomach twisted. It wasn't just jealousy. He was playing a long game. Cole wasn't his enemy. He was a stepping stone. The next morning, HR sent an email. Reminder: personal relationships between managers and direct reports are strictly prohibited. Please maintain professionalism at all times. They didn't name us. They didn't have to. That same afternoon, Jenna asked me into another quick chat. The room felt colder than usual. "Harper," she said, "I want to talk about your presence on the Chicago trip." "My presence?" I repeated. She folded her hands. "Several people have raised concerns that your inclusion may have been based on factors outside of performance." My breath caught. "I was assigned because I built the prototype." She hummed skeptically. "We don't question your effort, but perception matters," I finished for her, voice hollow. She nodded sympathetically. Fake sympathy. Corporate sympathy. "Cole has requested that you be removed from the Chicago account temporarily," she said. I felt the floor drop out from under me. "He what?" "He believes it's the best way to reduce attention and protect you." Protect me? By publicly distancing himself. By silently agreeing with the narrative that I was a liability. It was a betrayal disguised as strategy. When I left HR, I headed straight toward the elevators. That's when I saw them, Cole and Jenna, standing near the pantry. She touched his arm lightly as she laughed at something he said. He didn't pull away. It felt like someone punched me in the chest. I turned before either of them saw me, wiping tears with the back of my hand. I didn't cry because he hurt me romantically. I cried because every man I had trusted in the workplace, every single one, had left me to clean up the fallout alone. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed with an anonymous message. "You should start looking for another job. HR is building a case." My pulse spiked. My fingers went numb. Someone wanted me gone. Someone was accelerating. I stared at the message for a long time before whispering to myself, "Fine. If they want a war, I'll give them one." The morning of the review meeting felt like stepping into a courtroom where the verdict had already been whispered in the hallways. My badge beeped weakly against the scanner as I entered the conference floor. The room was larger than the usual meeting spaces. Glass walls, projector humming, rows of chairs arranged with corporate precision. It wasn't just my team this time. Directors, HR, finance leads. Even Mr. Kingston, our icy, expressionless CEO, sat at the head of the table like a judge waiting to hear confessions. My throat went dry. This wasn't a quick clarification. This was a public execution. I walked in trying to steady my breathing, but I still felt everyone's stares digging into my back. Some sympathetic, some hungry, most relieved that, for once, the drama wasn't about them. Cole was already there. He didn't look at me, not once. His posture was straight, stiff, hands clasped tightly on the table. He looked like a man bracing for a collision. It hurt, but it also sharpened something in me. If he wasn't going to stand between me and the fire, I'd walk into the flames myself. Jenna cleared her throat, projecting her voice just loud enough to command the room. Thank you all for joining. We need to address several concerns regarding the Chicago project, specifically around professional boundaries, perception of favoritism, and team conduct. The words hit like bullets. My fingers dug into my notebook. I could feel Noah's worried eyes from across the room. Marcus sat smugly near the middle, leaning back as if he'd been waiting for this moment. Jenna continued, tapping her tablet. We received multiple reports about potentially inappropriate interactions between a manager and a direct report during the Chicago trip. The projector flickered. My stomach plunged. A screenshot appeared, grainy, zoomed in, of me and Cole standing near the hotel coffee bar, laughing. Nothing inappropriate, but framed correctly, anything becomes damning. Murmurs rippled across the room. Another image replaced it, a Slack message from Cole to me. Let's go over your slides later tonight. Cut off right before the second line, before tomorrow's client pitch. The intentional omission made my chest burn. Jenna wasn't done. Additionally, concerns have been raised regarding why Harper was selected for the Chicago trip over more senior personnel. A subtle glance toward Marcus. He lifted his eyebrows and shrugged as if to say, "Who, me?" This pattern, Jenna continued, has created an environment of distrust. Several team members feel this may have influenced project assignments and evaluations. My pulse hammered. I could barely breathe. Then Jenna turned slightly toward Cole. Cole, would you like to speak? A long, painful silence. He inhaled, exhaled, and finally said, I did say something personal to Harper in Chicago. The room erupted with gasps and whispers. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. Even though I knew that moment existed, hearing him admit it, here, like this, felt like being exposed under a spotlight. But he wasn't finished. It wasn't romantic, and nothing physical happened, he continued, voice tight. I never gave her preferential treatment. All project assignments were based on performance. I stand by that. Jenna tilted her head. But you acknowledge an inappropriate comment? He nodded once. Yes. The room shifted. Even though he didn't betray me with lies, the truth itself was enough to condemn us both. Now it was my turn. Harper, Jenna said, do you want to respond? Every muscle in my body trembled, but when I stood, something inside me went still, like the moment before pulling a trigger. Yes, I said. My voice carried across the room with a calm I didn't know I possessed. I'm not here to defend a relationship that doesn't exist. I'm here to defend my work, my integrity. I clicked the remote. The projector switched, not to screenshots or rumors, to data. Cold, hard data. These are my logged hours for the last quarter projects, I said. You'll notice I worked more overtime than anyone else on my team. Here are the contribution breakdowns for each deliverable. I wasn't given high-visibility projects. I earned them. Whispers stopped. Every eye sharpened. I clicked again. This, I continued, is the file history from the client report that was altered. Not by me, by Marcus. Gasps. Marcus jerked upright. That's taken out of... I raised my hand sharply. He went quiet. And this, I said, clicking again, is an audio clip. Josh, the intern, looked down, nervous. He knew. A recording played. I'll make sure everyone hates her. Then she'll leave on her own. Marcus's voice, clear, cold, calculating, the room frozen. Marcus's face was drained of color. That was taken out of context. No, I said, it wasn't. You wanted me gone so you could undermine Cole and position yourself for his job. Dead silence. I looked at Jenna, then at Mr. Kingston, then at Cole. I've been humiliated, sabotaged, and treated like a problem instead of a person, I said, voice steady. But I'm not quitting, and I'm not hiding. No one dared to speak. I closed my laptop. My work speaks louder than rumors, and so does the truth. The room stayed silent as I walked out, each step echoing against the glass walls. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel afraid. I felt powerful. When I stepped out of that conference room, the hallway felt unnaturally quiet, like the building itself was holding its breath. My heart was still pounding, but not from fear, from clarity, from the sudden realization that the story they'd been writing about me for weeks wasn't theirs to control anymore. People avoided eye contact as I walked back toward my desk, not out of disgust this time, out of uncertainty, out of the uneasy awareness that the narrative had shifted. I wasn't the fragile junior analyst anymore. I wasn't the whisper behind cupped hands. I was the one who walked into a room full of leadership and turned the entire investigation upside down. Marcus's desk was empty when I passed it, his chair still slightly tilted, as if he'd left in a rush. A notification popped up on my screen moments later. Marcus Hale has been removed from the Chicago account effective immediately. A second alert followed. Suspension pending further review. It should have felt satisfying. Justice served, balance restored. But it didn't. Because something in that room, something in the stiff way the directors exchanged glances, in the way Kingston whispered to Jenna, told me Marcus wasn't the only player in this game. He was just the most obvious. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen but seeing only the meeting replaying in my head. The choice of words, the timing of certain questions, the way Cole's assignment decisions had been dragged into the spotlight as if someone had prepared the narrative in advance. Someone bigger wanted this scandal, someone higher up. My inbox chimed, a calendar invite, mandatory one-on-one with Director Rowan, someone I'd barely interacted with but who, rumor had it, was being groomed for a VP role. The subject line chilled me. Organizational realignment discussion. Realignment. Corporate code for elimination, transfer, or quiet removal. I leaned back in my chair, my pulse steady, my mind sharper than it had ever been. They wanted a war of perception. They wanted to weaponize whispers, manipulate moves, and pit us against each other. Fine. I opened the hidden folder on my desktop, the one labeled Insurance. Inside were timestamps, logs, inconsistencies, email trails that didn't match, and one particular file I hadn't shown anyone yet. A thread between two directors discussing succession planning that started long before Chicago. If they thought I was done fighting, they misunderstood me. I wasn't planning to survive this workplace. I was planning to expose it. If you've ever felt cornered at work or watched a rumor grow legs and chase you, then you know exactly what it took for me to tell this story. And trust me, it's not over. Offices look polished from the outside, but behind every glass wall there's a mess no one talks about. If you want to hear what happens when I walk into that meeting with Director Rowan, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone stuck in a toxic workplace. Drop your own story in the comments. I read every single one. Your voice matters here.